Greetings and welcome again, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Carl's Spirits. And this is our 75th show. And so tonight we're going to do something slightly different. So I want you to grab yourself a pour of your favorite daily drinker and let's talk about some bourbon. So in this 75th anniversary episode, we're going to be doing something a little different, as I said. It is September. In fact, this video is going to drop on September 1. And that means it's officially bourbon season. You know, the kids are back in school. Now it's time for the parents to enjoy bourbon season, ladies and gentlemen. We could do a lot of different things to celebrate our native spirit. We could do the 30 Days of Bourbon Challenge, which is a great way to try many different bourbons. But we're not going to be doing that. But as someone who has done it once or twice, okay, 3 times, some suggestions. If you're going to do the 30 Days of Bourbon Challenge, take notes. After about day 5 or 6, they're all going to start to run together a little bit. And you're not going to remember, was this the one that tasted like this? Or is this the one that tasted like that? So take notes. And don't just say, I liked this or I didn't like this. Explain why and what flavors you noticed. There's no wrong answers here. It's what you like, and that's what's really important. You don't have to geek out and create a spreadsheet, but feel free to do that if that's how you process. One other thing, take pictures. Take pictures of the bottle. Along with the notes, those pictures will someday be invaluable to you as you try to put together flavors with what the bottle looks like when you're out somewhere. So for this episode of Carl's Spirits, this is something I've kind of wanted to do for a while now, and I've talked to a few people about wanting to do this. But I want to do an episode where we build a bourbon collection for a reasonable price. Now, that word reasonable is subjective. I think you all would agree. What's reasonable for me may not be reasonable for someone else, and what's reasonable for someone else is definitely not reasonable to me. So I want the selections to be affordable, number one. I want them to be affordable. I want them to have a different flavor profile. And most importantly, I want them to be widely available. This is not a hunt for, Pappy or Blanton's, if you will, but this is widely available bourbons at an affordable price. So I arbitrarily picked a price point of $300 as my price point ceiling. And so I figure for this price, we can get 9 to 10 good bottles of bourbon that are solid and they're different in their taste profile. And as I said, widely available. And that's really the key. Now, I know what I select probably won't be what you select. And there's a couple of things to remember here about that. First, this is what's available for my area right here in Missouri. Second, I have to like what I'm recommending. So I'm just not going to recommend something because it's widely available. It's be something I actually enjoy drinking. That's not to say what you would recommend isn't good. It's just, well, that brings me to point 3. It's my list. So yours may be different, and that's okay. Keep that in mind. And some of you may even go so far as to say, hey, wait a minute. You took the easy way out recommending these really common bourbons. And if that's your opinion, you're welcome to it. But remember, widely available. Not all bourbon is widely available, as we know. I would gladly include Buffalo Trace on this review as one of my favorites, as one of my daily drinkers. It's my go-to. It's my sentimental favorite. I still enjoy Buffalo Trace to this day. I'm lucky. I'm sitting in a place where there is plenty of Buffalo Trace sitting on the shelves readily available. But it's hard to find in some areas, and in other areas it's allocated to extinction. So it's not widely available, so you're not going to find even a Buffalo Trace on here. The ones I have selected, I think, will be widely available. So here's my ultimate premise. You are new to bourbon, and you want to start building a small collection, and you have $300. What do you buy? That is the premise. That leaves a lot of room for individual interpretation. So I further broke this down into 4 broad categories. Mixers, number 1, mixers. These are great bourbons to mix, make your Manhattans, your Old Fashions, your mint juleps, whatever. They can also stand on their own if they have to. That's something I think is really important because I'm not a mixed drink person for the most part. Number two, your daily drinkers. These are the ones you go to. The ones that are always on your shelf that you enjoy sitting back on a Tuesday evening, Wednesday afternoon, whatever, and having a wee dram of whiskey. Third point, or the third category, is impress the guests. This is the bourbon that you bring out when you got visitors over. You really want to impress them that you have good stuff. Now remember, this has to be under a certain price point, so that's kind of tricky. And finally, the fourth one is the special occasion bourbon, and this one's widely subjective, obviously. So I think that some, if not all the bourbons I've selected could fit in most of these categories. So take the categorization that I offer for what it's worth. They could slip back and forth really easily. As I said, most of the daily mixers that I have on the shelf that we're going to be talking about tonight, I drink neat. I don't mix. So they are definitely room for your individual interpretation here. So we're going to kick off with the mixers. Now, I'm not going to really taste a lot. I am just going to simply talk a little bit about each bourbon. And the very first one that we are going to go with is one that may surprise you, but I think it's a great value for the bourbon. And that is Evan Williams Bottled in Bond White Label. Bottled in Bond, Evan Williams White Label. Guys, this is a very full flavor bourbon. It's got a smooth taste from Heaven Hill. And as a bottled in bond, it comes in at a nice 100 proof. It's at least 4 years old. And that 100 proof is really going to stand up well in mixed drinks and cocktails. And it's great all by itself. It has a traditional bourbon profile, and it's a steal at, wait for it, $18 locally. That's $18. Again, your prices are going to fluctuate a little bit. As I did this, I drove around to several places. I found it at 17, I found it at 20, 18 was kind of right in the middle, and I found two places where it was offered at 18. Obviously, I'm rounding up. We're not worrying about change here. $18, ladies and gentlemen. The next bourbon in our mixer category is a great standby for a lot of people, and that is Bulleit Bourbon. Bulleit is a high rye, and so that comes in at 90 proof, but that's rye spicy profile is going to really increase the level of your mixed drinks. It's great in cocktails that require that rye spiciness. And those who like to sip a rye whiskey, this is good and neat as well. Locally for me, Bulleit, right around $28. So that's our two. 18, 28. Okay? 18 and 28. Our third and final bottle in the mixer category is Old Forester 100 proof. Good old classic, Old Forester. This is the first bottled whiskey, ladies and gentlemen, from Brown-Forman, dating back all the way to 1870. This is the juice that they used to make mint juleps at Kentucky Downs. It's hard not to place this one on the list. Great in mixers. It's great by itself. $23. $23. Yes, it's a screw top, but it's got a great flavor and a great price. So these are the three that I'm singling out as our mixers tonight. We have our Evan Williams White to recap. We have our Bulleit, the high rye, and we have good old standby Old Forester. So those are our three mixers. So next up, we go to our daily drinkers. Now, there's a lot of room here for a lot of bourbons, but I chose two that I felt would really stand out in the daily drinker category. And the first one is a standby. It's on almost every shelf you can imagine, and that's for good reason. Good old Red Top, Maker's Mark. Guys, I include this because it's got a different flavor. It is a wheated bourbon instead of a rye. So it uses wheat as its secondary grain. That gives the taste profile, or the taste in your mouth, much softer, much more approachable for a lot of people, especially those novice drinkers. And so this is a really smooth bourbon. It's great to drink neat. It's great to drink on the rocks. You can mix it. It's great. $26. locally. Second, and our last entry on the daily drinker list is Knob Creek. Knob Creek 9-year. Now, I don't have any Knob Creek 9-year on my shelf currently. I do have the 120 proof store pick, so we're going to have to make do with that tonight as my example. But guys, Knob Creek is a product of Jim Beam, and it's a go-to favorite. Just pure and simple. It's got a deep flavor. It's got a 100 proof offering. It's great value, $30 a bottle. Okay, $30 a bottle. So our two daily drinkers, 26, 30 bucks. Next up, we have the Impress the Guests. Now we're probably getting into territory where everybody's going to have a different opinion. Remember, that's okay. So my first one is one that I also don't have a bottle of currently on my shelf, but I have the next step up. That's a Russell's Reserve 10-year. Now this is a private barrel selection. I apologize, I don't have any regular 10-year Russells on my shelf. So again, use your imagination. White label, Russell's Reserve in big letters, big number 10 over here on the side. This is a product of the legendary father and son distillers of Eddie and Jimmy Russell. Great bourbon. It could easily be a daily drinker. Give your guests a pour of this at 90 proof, 10-year bourbon, and they will not believe that it cost you $35. Again, $35 for the 10-year Russell's Reserve. The next one in the Impress the Guest category, I think, is going to be the wild card. It's going to cause some concern with other people. They followed along, said, yeah, I could go along with this, or I could go along with this offering, or whatever. This next one, I think, is going to cause some controversy. And that's okay. It can be a little difficult to find at times, but it is available. It's kind of sporadic. It's probably the most sporadic one on this entire list. And that happens to be Michter's. Michter's, ladies and gentlemen, a product of Michter's US 1. This is actually Michter's US 1 bourbon. I find this to be a really creamy, rich pour. It's enjoyable. I really enjoy this. Price tag, $45 to $55. I'm going to split the difference, call it $50 locally. Okay, you can find it cheaper, you can find it a little higher, you just have to look. Michter's, though, really enjoyable, and I think your guests would really appreciate a Michter's. All right, the special occasion, again, this is a category I think will also cause controversy. Again, not everyone's definition is the same as mine. So my first one in this category is one of my favorites, and that is Rare Breed, another offering from Wild Turkey. Wild Turkey's Rare Breed. This is really developed into one of my favorite whiskeys over the past couple of years. Comes in at a good 116.8 proof. It's hot, but it doesn't overpower, and I'm going to come back to that in a moment. It's a blend of a 6, an 8, and a 12-year bourbon, and they all use the same mash bill, or this uses the same mash bill as all other Wild Turkey products. 75% corn, 13% rye, 12% malted barley. It has just the right amount of heat. I said it's spicy, it's hot, but it's just the right amount. And the most important thing, it lets you know it's there, but it's not trying to hide the flavor like so many other high proofs do. So many other high proofs try to hide the flavor with that heat from the alcohol. Rare Breed does not do that. It comes through with a great flavor. It's a steal, 50 bucks. It's well worth the money. Rare Breed from Wild Turkey. So, comes down to one final pick, really. If you've been doing the math, we're right at about, $260. 260 bucks is about where we are. And I really couldn't make up my mind, to be honest, and it's a flip between either of these two. And these are two of my absolute favorites right now, and both are products of Brown-Forman, believe it or not. They are both double oaked expressions. That's right, we're going to go with Old Forester 1910 and Woodford Double Oak. So Woodford Double Oak and Old Forester 1910. These are the two. It's a coin toss. Okay, they are both from Brown-Forman. They both use the same mash bill, 72% corn, 18% rye, 10% malted barley. Both of them are double oaked, which means they've been dumped from their original oak barrel. They've been rebarreled in a new oak barrel and left to mature for another, usually it's about 8 to 10 months, somewhere in that neighborhood. Guys, these are almost like desserts in a glass for me. That's why I included it on this special occasion. They have really deep flavors of dark chocolate, vanilla, rich caramel, and oak. And so despite all that commonalities that they have, and they have some commonalities on taste, they are not exactly the same. There's a great difference between the two. They're both really great in their own way. It's actually a lot of fun to try these two side by side. Oh, the price. I didn't make my $300. I went over ever so slightly. It's $55 for the Woodford, and it's $56 for the 1910 locally. So $315 is where we come in, roughly. So guys, that's my take on where you would start if you were a novice bourbon drinker wanting to get into bourbons and wanting to put together a bourbon shelf with common available bourbons. That's my list. 9 bottles, $315. Choose one of these and you have $315. It's really your choice. Now, do you know someone who's wanting to get into bourbon? You probably do. Share this with them and start a conversation with them about bourbon. It doesn't have to be what I like or what I've suggested. Use it as a starting point to talk to them about what they like and what you like and what commonalities you both have. This is a great way to make friends. It's a great way to pass the time and really have some special moments. And I know many of your opinions are going to differ. That's okay. I've always said that. What would you add to this list? What would you have on this list instead of these 9? Let me know in the comments below. Let's make this a community where we can talk about bourbon. As always, I want everyone to stay safe, peace, and happy pours.